Hi there, I'm Sunny Muffin, and this is my marathon submission for Tunic. This is a Zelda-like indie game where we're going to be playing as this little adorable fox, and you're going to see a ton of parallels to the Zelda series, but this game is going to bring some unique aspects to the speedrun. So this is our little fox friend, and when we first start off, the game really gives you no direction. So the first thing in the speedrun is we're going to be using 2 of the bomb codes. These bomb codes are something that you discover a little bit later on. They're 1 per file, so I'm using 2 of the 3 that we're provided to pick up some dynamite and pick up a fire bomb here, because you're supposed to have the sword to get through these bushes, but by using the bomb code, we're able to get access to this side of the map a little bit early. And we're going to be making our way to just basically collect the items that we need for this speedrun. So using that dynamite and that firebomb, I kind of clear a path over to this teleporter. This is the game's fast travel system, and you're going to just kind of see this hub here that has all of these various teleporters. Again, the game casually just doesn't tell you about any of this. It really wants you to discover all the various things within the world, and it does a really good job of that. Like the game itself is very cryptic, and you kind of discover more as you play. But since we have all of the knowledge when we are starting out this run, we use it. So first item on our checklist is the hook shot. So the hook shot, like in any Zelda type game, it's pretty broken, and it's going to enable us to access some areas early. So while this area, the atoll, isn't necessarily something that's like out of sequence, you can technically get here like very, very early on in the run, but the enemies are pretty dangerous. So you're going to see me doing some shenanigans to kind of skip past a lot of these enemies. So the hookshot is held within the frog's domain down here. This is probably like the 3rd area you would normally visit in a playthrough. It's not something that you do like right away, and for the most part, this run is going to be done without the aid of any upgrades. So we're gonna be picking up items, but like your stats, you can upgrade throughout the run. We're not doing any of that. It's pretty slow, so we're gonna be doing base stats for a majority of the run. So we're down here in the frog's domain, and this is going to be the first trick coming up. So this like hookshot area is normally like a big long dungeon that you have to maneuver around, but I'm going to trick this guy into tonguing my little fox and pulling him into the area that has the hookshot, and then doing a depth warp here. One of the cool things about this game is the game continues to run while you're in the item menu, so a lot of the equips are going to be done like when you're not doing anything else, and letting the game run in the background, and all of those are kind of planned out. So the first death that you have takes you to this ghost world, and it's just revealing some more of the story of the game. So this ghost world, you're not supposed to use items in there, but like they're grayed out, but for some reason you can still use them. So instead of taking the like 30-second time loss and watching the cutscene, we just do another death warp there with the dynamite. So now we have the hookshot. So the hookshot can be used to pull enemies towards you or hook onto some of these like you see that little like tuning fork thing right there. You can pull yourself to those. So the first trick in the run is going to be what's called an effigy drop. So if you notice in my inventory in the top right, I have an effigy. This is usually just used for resources, so you get like some gems from it, which is like the in-game currency. But if you time it right, you can use it to drop. So I did a hook shot onto that turret, and midair hit the effigy button, and that causes me to drop to the nearest area of landable terrain. It's a little bit precise. There's like 2 locations that actually work for that within the setup that I do, and you're aiming for the second one because it's a little bit faster. So those bomb codes plus this that you just saw, this game has a lot of like different secrets that are accessed by using the D-pad when you press like a series of inputs. So right there, that's the second sword that you can get through the run. It's not the intended sword, but you can just go ahead and open that door doing a series of D-pad inputs. This crocodile right here is a jerk, but we just kind of pull him off this little flooded area, and then I do the last bomb code. So the frost bomb is going to be, it's pretty unique. Enemies in this game, when they're frozen, you're allowed to hook shot to them, and that's basically going to be one of the biggest tricks throughout the run, and it's how you're going to use some of these sequence breaks. So I set up a pretty precise position here, throw the frost bomb, and it's going to hit the enemy above me, and then hook shot up to this dynamite chest, and now I'm in a good position to get to the Frost Rod. So like I said, Frost is pretty broken. When you're able to hookshot 2 enemies, you can kind of lure them into the locations that you need and get some pretty cool sequence breaks coming up. So pick up the Frost Rod right here. I did take some intentional damage along the way because you can death warp in this game. So when you pray at one of the altars, so I prayed at the altar in a atoll, and when I die, it's going to then teleport me back to the atoll. This is going to be basically the hub for the remainder of the game, and it's why this game is it's pretty ridiculous how tight this route is, because any mistake sends you all the way back to atoll, and sometimes we're going to be doing intentional death warps to kind of speed up that process. So first item acquired, we got the Frost Rod here, and on its own, it's pretty useless. It costs a ton of mana. So in the upper right, you can see how many uses of each magic item that I have. So my hookshot, I have 8 uses if I'm targeting an enemy. If I target anything that you can actually grapple to, it doesn't take a use. But the Frost Rod, you can only use 3 times before you're out of mana, which is really prohibitive, and we're going to need to eventually combo that. So this is the Dark Tomb. The Dark Tomb is one of the dark areas of the game, I guess. It's Dark Tomb. So I have to do some blind movement here to make my way through the Dark Tomb. And in this area, the only reason we're here is there's a chest with an item in it, and the item is the Orange Pearl Ring. The Orange Pearl Ring, basically, it doubles your damage when you are on critical health. And since I'm not going to be picking up any upgrades, being on critical health and doing more damage that way is really the only damage that we get throughout the run. And then also I'm going to be damaging down to set up a death warp, as well as set myself into critical HP for the Orange Pearl Ring. You can save and quit out of areas. The game does autosave in some areas, so like when I entered that Dark Tomb, it is going to put me right back at the entrance. This is used a couple of times through the run, but it's really not that important because you don't gain any of your resources back. So now I'm picking up the Fire Rod. The Fire Rod and the Ice Rod in tandem can be used to freeze enemies from afar. The game tells you this, but it tells you it for a secret that's super late into the run. This game it's pretty cool. So when you're making your way through the game, you pick up pages of an instruction manual. It's like an old school manual that you would get with an NES game, and you discover more and more about the systems within the game as you pick up those pages. With perfect knowledge and working as a speedrun, you're able to not have to worry about that at all. So that black pillar right there, you saw me pray. This is one of the mechanics of the game. You can pray at these pillars, and it turns power on to various locations within the run. So I'm going to be praying at this other black pillar right here, and if you look down in the distance, you're going to see that big door. It's a really long, tall door. And that is the Ancient Ziggurat. That's going to be the next location that we are going to. The goal of this game and of this ending in particular is to get the 3 hex keys. So they're hexagonal keys, totally not a Triforce. You have to get those 3 keys, and that's going to enable you to fight the final fight and finish the game. So right there, I did it's like a freeze drop. So I pulled an enemy off of the ledge. Then I froze him, and then I used my hook shot to pull to the enemy that was off the ledge and do a drop. This area is the quarry, and it's one of the intended. I think it's the last area that you're supposed to go to. It has this mechanic called miasma, where it's constantly lowering your max HP. So if you saw while I was walking through there, you had all this really terrible noise going on, and my max HP was getting slowly lowered. There is a way you can counteract this. There's an item you can get, but that's slow, so we're not going to do that. However, once you're in the Ancient Ziggurat, I do another save and quit, and that brings all of your max HP back. And since I took damage in that Dark Tomb, it brings it back to whatever HP I was at before the miasma started taking effect. So the Ancient Ziggurat, this is where the blue key is going to be. This is, again, I think it's the last area you're intended to go to, but we're going to it first. Just it's convenient from where we were picking up the Fire Rod and the Orange Pearl Ring. And a lot of the enemies in here are pretty scary. The big thing here is going to be mana management. So the blue bar underneath my little camera right here is going to be our mana, and I have to pay really, really close attention to how much mana I have. These sentries, they do drop these little blue orbs, which fill up your mana, and I'm aiming to be above 9 right here, and I have 11, so we are good to go from there. There are a couple more sentries that I purposely don't aggro. If I do need more mana, I can get them from there. One of the quirks of the ice shot is it does go through terrain, so I can hit that shortcut from the side that you're not supposed to hit it from, and it enables me to get to this mini boss a little bit faster. This mini boss is pretty no froze. I just throw 4 dynamite, that gets through the phase 1. His phase 1 can't be frozen, but his phase 2 can, and just by hitting him, by constantly freezing him using both the ice rod and the fire rod at the same time, you just can stun lock him and finish him off pretty quickly. He does drop mana, so I make sure to pick that up. I need 14 here. If I don't have 14, I can't finish the final boss for this zone. And there are obviously backups that you can do to get more mana, but for the sake of this run, this is just recorded over my PB. So I take all the risks that I possibly can to get the fastest time. So the ziggurat is probably one of the slowest areas of the run. In a marathon setting, this would be a really good time for some donations because we're just doing a bunch of running around. The area when you're going through it casually, it's just gigantic and it takes forever. But yeah, in a speed run, we go through pretty quick. So this is a lure. The lure is going to be pretty important later on. It's one of the items that you don't get until way late in the run. Basically, it creates another little fox friend, and that fox friend distracts enemies for you. And you're going to see when that pops up here in just a minute. So just taking some elevators down, this is a really important lore area of the game. I don't want to spoil too much, but basically those big black pillars you've been praying to are fallen heroes from times past. So yeah, this is the bad ending version of the run, and you get a lot of the lore about what happens to all of these fallen heroes. So you see their skeletons as you're going down the map here. Alright, so again, so the game, you're supposed to have a lantern, so I didn't mention that earlier with the dark room. The dark room you eventually can light up, but the lantern is really slow, and being speedrunners, we know where we're going, even in the dark. So this is probably one of the more tense moments of the run. So you're on 1 HP a whole lot of this route. Because of that orange pearl ring, you're able to do twice as much damage, as well as to set up death warps. So if you remember, my last save was all the way back in Atoll. So I have a death warp purposely set up here because the bottom of the ziggurat is basically the furthest you can get from Atoll. So by waiting to die until all the way down at the bottom, we're going to save a ton of time backtracking. I pick up some berries here. These are really important. These fill up your mana. And the final fight, I don't have enough mana to finish currently, so those berries are really critical. This is a double mini boss fight that you have to activate this pillar in order to raise a bridge. Turns out if you freeze them from max range, they don't activate, so you don't have to deal with their annoying attack like this one is on the left is doing, where it basically pulses the entire platform. When you roll, you do have iframes, so it's not like it's really that bad, but you just have to make sure to time your roll over it. But I'm on 1 HP this entire time, so any mistake, you're dead, and you're all the way back in Atoll. So we're going to be making our way to the first boss of the run. So this is boss Scavenger. And all of the bosses in this run, sans one, have some sort of cheese to them. This boss, he is across a bridge. So we are in a field of those black pillars that have fallen heroes in them, and this boss Scavenger is down here. He's up to no good, but he is guarding the blue hex key, so we're just gonna pull him from across the bridge. I don't want to be in his arena. He's kind of scary. So then I freeze him, and as he gets unfrozen, he has a couple of frames where you can actually grapple him and just drop him off the edge. So there goes boss Scavenger. He's dead. So I pick up the blue hex key, and then again, that death warp that I've been setting up this entire time. Go ahead and throw a dynamite and send the fox back all the way back to Atoll. And while you're dying, you can access the menu and set up your equips. So it's really nice to be able to do that during the death animation, because then you can just get your equips ready and not lose any time. So here we're back in Atoll, and we're going to be heading toward the Librarian, who's the next boss and the next who holds the next hex key. In order to get to the Librarian, there are 4 of these pillars you have to pray at. They're in the corners of the atoll, so this is really just trying to make the fastest way to all 4 of those pillars, pray at them, get them activated so I can head to the Librarian. So we're going to be doing the 2 pillars on the left here. For this one, there are some enemies that I'm intentionally avoiding. These ones right here, they do activate, but they explode upon death, so I'm purposely killing that one right there, and that just kills off the other 2. This bird right here, he's a tattletale, and there are 2 sentries just out of off screen where you just see them activate. By freezing the bird, he doesn't tattle on you, and you can activate that pillar before the 2 sentries activate and try to kill you. So then I do a save and quit that sends you back to your last save. Again, notably, it doesn't restore resources. So this game, like, resources are really, really important. I'm like watching my mana, watching my HP throughout the entire run. So this pillar up here, you have to have really, really good movement to get there before the crabs do. You can just like kill the crabs, that's really slow, but I eventually do want to take damage. So I'm going to pray at this pillar and then intentionally get hit by a couple of these crabs so I can save a little bit of time later. So there's 1 hit right there. The last pillar, we're going to be using just the hook shot to get to. It's really no frills. This is, again, kind of a good time for some donations during a marathon. It's a low action point, but again, there's still stuff happening. Okay, cool. So we're at the final pillar, and again, there's a little bit of time here before this pillar drops, and I can quit. So I use that time to get my equips ready for the next section. Just a small little time saver right there. And then we have to head to the center of the map. I do need to set up a death warp, so I'm going to intentionally take 2 damage from these crabs. They also like to get in the way, so they get 1 shot with the orange pearl ring, and just getting them out of the way so they don't bother me while I'm praying at this statue, and activating this teleporter right here. So again, that teleporter is going. I have a little bit of time to equip my hook shot. We're now into the, I believe it's like the Great Library. It's where the Librarian is. So this is a pretty mellow section of the run. You're just trying to move through this area as fast as you can. The movement in this game is actually really crisp, and you can definitely tell when you have good movement. You have to make sure that you're sprinting as much as possible and taking as straight of lines as possible. Alright, so making our way up to the Librarian Arena. The Librarian is going to be at the top of this very, very tall tower, and the fight is like really annoying, where the Librarian is flying all over the place, and you have to usually use ranged attacks. I don't really have any ranged attacks outside of like my fire attack that I can only use 6 times. And the Librarian has a ton of health, so again, we're going to set up another quick kill. So in this case, there is a death plane that spawns when you start the fight. That's like 2/3 of the way up that first ladder. So the idea here is I'm going to be using this lure at a very precise position. This lure does have some RNG involved, where it wants to walk whatever way it wants to walk. You can't really control it. So I have to send it at an angle where it won't activate the Librarian right away, because I need to get onto the ladder and get below the death plane before the Librarian actually aggroes. If I am too slow on that, or if your lure just like goes straight into the Librarian, the death plane activates and you can't get below it in time to not die. And then when you get low enough, the Librarian will try to attack you when you're really far down, and Librarian flies through his own death plane. It's kind of ridiculous how you kill that boss. So now we have the green hex key, and the Librarian is felled. Now we have to head to the red hex key. The red hex key is held in the Eastern Fortress, and this is probably one of the more I find this like the most consistent fight, but some people like have problems with it. It's a pretty stress-free area. So again, using some of that buffer time, like when you're loading in, you can open up the menu, equip the sword. This is like the first bushes that you're supposed to cut the entire run, but we went a different way, so we have to use the sword to cut through, and then pray at this middle statue. This is kind of like the hub area. This is where you would normally be like setting your save point, but again, Atoll was a little bit more convenient for purposes of the speedrun, but we're done on that like entire western side of the map. So we're finally heading over to the eastern side of the map. Just south of here is where you would normally get your first sword and your shield. But this is a speedrun. We don't need a shield. Who needs that? So moving through this fortress, this is a big sequence break here. This is like the fourth area of the fortress that you're supposed to go to. But you can off-screen that guy with a ice shot and hook shot to him. This area is technically a dark room, and one of the quirks of dark rooms is that you can't target anything. So I have to do a blind shot here. Like this has to be manually lined up instead of targeted to hit this guy with the candles right here, freeze him. And one quirk of frozen enemies is they can go through doors. So by freezing him and hookshotting him over and over, I can just clip into the door to get to the interior of the Eastern Vault and fight the siege engine. I do need to damage down. The orange pearl ring only works when you're on critical HP, so I have to make sure that I don't have too much HP so I can actually deal enough damage. And this is one of the cooler quick kills in the run. I am going to basically roll into the siege engine before he activates and get behind him. He does have a core which has lower defense, so therefore it takes more damage. And by doing a precise set of hits, when he activates, he goes into his broken animation. When he's in his broken animation, you can get underneath the core and get into this little area where he can't like do anything. So you essentially just stun lock him by using his own core against him. Yeah, there goes the siege engine. That's the third boss of the run. Pretty easy, not a big deal. Yeah, now we're going to be activating the Red Hex Key and getting that key. So the Red Hex Key is actually going to be in this pillar that we have to activate. This is like a really long cutscene, so instead of watching that cutscene, we just quit to title, and this will reset me back at the start of the boss room. I promise this saves time. The cutscene's actually really long. And again, being at critical HP, I'm able to set up that death warp. And if you remember, I saved in the middle of the map, and that's going to be where we need to go next. Alright, so basically in the middle of the map, we have the Temple of Time type thing, where it's the hub, and it's where you eventually would transition to the Ghost World. The Ghost World is actually not used at all in the speedrun. You don't need it. Like, there's a bunch of items there. It's kind of like Link in the Past Dark World. And there's some lore things going on that I'll explain here in a minute, but we need to go put the keys in their pedestals. So this is definitely not the Triforce and not like spiritual stones or anything like that, but yeah, there's 3 pedestals here and we have 3 hex keys, so we need to go put them in. And these 3 keys are going to eventually unlock the air. The air is the final fight of the run, but basically it's like the fox's, I think it's like the fox's mom. But it's been corrupted and has been imprisoned for a long time, so we're going to use these hex keys to unlock her prison. Now, you might have saw that I did damage down. So this isn't to set up the orange pearl ring to do more damage. This is because any good Zelda game has some cutscene skips. So you see here, when you put in a key, you get this long, like 30-second cutscene where you watch these barriers drop off. For the first 2, it's fine to watch them. It's not faster to death warp, but for this one, set up a pretty precise dynamite throw, activate the last key, and you die as you activate the last key, and that skips the cutscene, because this is basically Ocarina of Time, where you just die while starting the cutscene. So yeah, now we're ready to head to the final fight. We're going to use that fast travel hub because that is technically within the ghost world, and it's the way we're going to access the air fight. So this being the final fight of the run, normally, if this was not a speed run, this is an intended death. This is like where you're supposed to die, and then you get sent to the ghost world. The entire world changes, like think Dark World, Link to the Past. And then you have to go as a ghost and make your way throughout the areas again, but now it's like, now they're different. Some things have been thrown in. There's new enemies. There's all sorts of new stuff. Turns out you can actually just kill the air right here. This fight is intended to not be doable. You would normally run out of stamina while trying to dodge the air, and she would just catch up to you and one-shot you. I do take an intentional hit there to set up the orange pearl ring, and now we just stun lock the air down. This looks really easy. It's actually pretty precise. She has really good freeze resistance, so like as you're freezing her, if you're not quick enough with your attacks and your refreezes, she just break out and she can just, again, one-shot you. It is a 2-phase fight, and the second phase has miasma component to it, where it's going to lower your max HP. I'm at 1 HP. I would die if I did that, but it's a pretty tight part of the run where you have to be really, really precise with your inputs in order to get the quick kill on here. You also do need all 3 of those mana berries to do the fastest kill. You can do one that has 2 berries required, but it's a little bit slower, and since I didn't have to use a backup throughout the run, I'm able to use all 3 berries during the air fight and finish her off pretty quickly. But yeah, that's Tunic. This is the bad ending of the game. You eventually just wind up getting re-imprisoned where the air was imprisoned before, and it's not good, but you get credits. And as a speedrunner, we like to hit credits. So this is the fastest version of this run, and this again is just recorded over my PB, which is a pretty good run. So 25 minutes IGT, it's like 27 real time. But yeah, I'd be really excited to show this off at the marathon. I think this game would be an absolute sick addition. This was like one of the most anticipated indie games for a while, and it holds up. It's super, super good. So I just thank you for your consideration, and I hope to see Tunic at the marathon. So have a great day, y'all.